All right, hello everyone. My name is Brian Gramajo, and this is my mentorship one-on-one project. So, what will I be talking about? Um, Basically, first, I'll define mentorship and what it meant in the context of this program. Then I'll highlight two key skills I developed, communication and empathy. I'll follow that with personal reflection of my experience, suggestions for how the program could improve, and how this experience could connect to my future career as a researcher. I'll finish with a brief conclusion after all that. And the first thing I really want to get into is an introduction to myself. So, my name is Brian Gamajo. I'm a physiology and medical sciences major with minors in psychology and classics. And I was really interested in becoming a peer mentor just because um, I feel like I lacked having a peer mentor my freshman year, and I wanted to provide something to freshmen that I didn't have. And so getting right into the main topic of mentorship. What is mentorship? A mentor, I mean, at its basic core is a guide, a role model, a source of support. Um, but it's also someone who encourages you and challenges you to grow. In the Physio Mentor program, we're not just tutors or academic helpers, we're supporters, motivators, and even role models for our mentees. At least for myself, I really tried my hardest to help them stay on track, provide advice, and act as a resource for navigating not just their classes, but their overall college experience. Especially I lean more towards the college experience part when it came to my approach to mentorship. Just because I think academically, at least for myself, I had a lot of guidance my freshman year. Whether it was my actual like major advisor or just professors or people around me. I always had people around me to ask for help when it came to class. But when it came to the actual college experience part, I feel like a lot of us that's where we struggle. And I think that was the biggest thing for me that I really tried to mentor when it came to my mentees. So why mentorship matters? Mentorship is important because it builds a sense of community. When students feel like they have someone in their corner, they're most likely to succeed academically and emotionally. Being a mentor has also helped me grow. I've learned to become more patient, more flexible, and more aware of how different people learn and cope. For mentees, it's comforting to know that they're not alone, especially in challenging STEM majors like physiology. I mean, I can't begin to explain just how much I grew personally from mentorship, especially with the patient part. My mentees, sometimes, they don't respond. Sometimes they ghost me for a long time. And I used to have to chase after them. And so definitely taught me to be more patient, definitely taught me to be more flexible. Um, but it's important because at the end of the day, like I was kind of, for a lot of my mentees, I was kind of like their first friend, the first person they spoke to. Um, and so I tried my hardest to give them a good intro, and really help them build that sense of community, and not just with me, but with the other mentees. I did a good job of having like group events where whether it be like study sessions or I'd take a group of them out. I tried my hardest to really introduce them to each other, get to have a sense of community, not just with peers, but also with other people within their major. I think that's the main core of why mentorship matters. And so, key skill number one, I know I just talked about patience, but that isn't one of the main skills that I listed here. The first skill I mentioned was actually communication. Um, Being a communicator is essential to being a good mentor. I learned how to explain complex concepts in simple terms, how to listen actively, and how to adapt the way I speak based on each mentee's personality or needs. I realized that communication is a two-way street. It's just as important to listen as it is to talk. I think that's something I definitely struggled with at the beginning. I think a lot of My mentee meetings when the program first started was mostly me talking, and them listening. And then as the first semester progressed, and especially this semester, I became a way better listener. I think I've learned that communication is not just, physically communicating, like talking. It's also 50% listening. And I definitely became a good listener through this mentorship program. Another big thing when it comes to communication is knowing the context. And when I mean context is I mean who you're communicating to. All my mentees had different personalities. I knew who I could really be, you know, how do I explain it? Like I could be hard on and who I couldn't. I knew what to say around certain mentees and what I shouldn't say around my other mentees. So yeah, I think communication is definitely one of the bigger things that I learned, and just some tips for building communication as a mentor. I mean, always start by asking open-ended questions like, how are you feeling about your classes instead of how are your grades? Giving your mentees space to talk and share, and then also following up regularly, not just when something goes wrong. I think consistency just shows that you care. I made them, not made them, but I had a calendar and I told them like, hey, just list down like important events during the semester. And so I always checked up on that calendar, and on that calendar, I had them put exam dates, homework dates, quiz dates, anything that they wanted, either extra attention on or, they wanted me to like keep on top of them for whatever they wanted for whatever reason. Um, and yeah, I mean, I checked up on them regularly. I made sure that they knew that I was there in their corner, and I actively communicated with them all the time, not just on our schedule one-on-one meetings. And I think that really went a long way. And then the next skill I really learned was empathy. This is something that I definitely, how do I say? I mean, it's not like I was an empathetic psychopath before this. I really wasn't. I've always been a very empathetic person, but I feel like it's different when you're in the position of a mentor. Just 'cause like, I mean, empathy could look so different depending on who you're talking to and who you're dealing with. Empathy between me and my mother or someone who's close with me, it might look like a hug, maybe a kiss on the cheek, but I'm not gonna do that with my mentee. And so it was a new skill that I had to really rebuild in a sense. Like I had to really restructure the way I showed empathy to these kids. And it especially became important when one of my mentees experienced a personal loss this semester. Not to get into too many details, she had lost her grandma, and I really didn't know how to approach it. She just hit me up with a text, cancel her one-on-one last minute, and was like, "Hey, I just had something come up, family emergency. I'll just talk to you about it later." And then when she did tell me about it, it was that she was experiencing loss. I really wasn't sure how to handle it at first, but I just focused on being present, checking in. I directed them to CAPS for more support. Because at the end of the day, I think there's also part of empathy is knowing how much empathy you could show, like not trying to do too much. At the end of the day, I could only provide so much help. And that experience taught me that sometimes mentors aren't there to fix everything. We're there to show that we care and we listen. And I always told my mentees, you're gonna get what you want out of me. I never tried to go overboard, and I really tried my hardest not to step those boundaries that we set at the beginning of the semester. We had our first meetings, and to build empathy, you have to treat each student as much more than just a GPA or their grades. Ask how their week has been, listen without jumping to advice. And that's a big one. I feel like, especially at the beginning, I would listen to one sentence, I would immediately jump to giving jump to giving them advice. And when they do open up, just validate what they're feeling. Even a simple, that sounds really tough. Thank you for sharing that with me. I think that can go a long way. And personal reflection. Looking back, I can say this experience definitely exceeded my expectations. When I first started mentoring, I was nervous about whether or not it'd be helpful. my first 2 years of college, I did put myself out there, but I feel like I didn't have the I felt like I didn't have the right amount of resources to really help my mentees. But over time, I gained a lot of confidence. Um, one of my favorite moments was, I mean, like helping my mentees, like when we first started creating like their study plans, which actually worked for them, especially when it came to their finals weeks. Um, it was really rewarding seeing them succeed. Even when I myself was struggling in my classes, they really motivated me. Seeing how they were kind of like the student surpassing like the teacher. Like I felt like that at some points. And it was definitely rewarding. Because at the end of the day, when I'd have a hard exam that same day, if one of them was having a good exam and they'd text me like, "Hey, I just did really good at my exam," I knew I played a part in them doing well, and it definitely did give me a sense of reward. I also grew again more patient and learned how to manage my own time better, balancing my classes, my job, research, mentoring. Taught me a lot about prioritization and boundaries. Being a mentor made me feel more connected to campus as well as I was introduced to different resources that I really didn't know about. Um, I personally have never gone to CAPS, so like recommending one of my students to CAPS this semester was like it was my first introduction to CAPS. Same thing with like campus health. I didn't really know a lot about them and so many other different resources across campus um, that I kind of had to immerse myself in because of my mentees. And so it definitely helped me connect myself more to campus. And it not just grew my confidence. I didn't just grow my confidence in terms of just like my mentees, but also just communicating with others, my peers, friends, and stuff. It definitely helped me out in a lot more ways than just helping my students. And then for program evaluation, I don't have a lot of suggestions or changes for the physio mental program, but if I were to give some, I'd start with offering a refresher training at the beginning of the spring semester. Um, I mean, the summer trainings, they stick in your head for like the good first month, and then after the first month, I kind of deviated a lot from the mentor trainings. I think having a good refresher on it before the spring semester would really help. Um, just so that we like, at least as a mentor, like just refreshing myself on like the core values of the program. Um, Another suggestion would be to provide more training on how to provide like how to handle emotional sensitive situations. I felt like I wasn't fully prepared to support my mentee when they were going through their personal loss, even though I think I did the best job that I could. I think it would have helped to have a little bit more guidance there. And lastly, I'd love to see a system for gathering anonymous feedback throughout the semester from the mentees, just so like as a mentor, we'd be able to adjust our approach or improve our relationship as it's happening, not just at the end. Um, and on top of that too, another thing that was very, how do I explain it? I think it's very relevant now, especially with everything that's happening. A lot of my mentees had anxiety about what was happening politically, especially when it came to DEI, the removal of the cultural centers across campus. A lot of my mentees had concerns about that, which I wasn't fully prepared to handle. I mean, I don't think anyone really was um, across this campus, and I think also having trainings for how to help students who, like, for example, depend off immigrant student resources or depend off the Guerrero Center, how to handle those students who need special attention. I think that would also help. And then career connection. Originally, even at the beginning of this year, I really wanted to become a physical therapist. But as the year um, progressed, I became more passionate about research. So now I plan to pursue a PhD. My mentorship experience actually helped me get there. In research, you need to communicate your findings clearly, guide others in lab settings, and collaborate with diverse teams. And all those things require empathy and strong communication, which is something that I practice as a mentor. And in the future, whether I'm leading a research project or training new students in the lab, I know those skills will carry over. Mentoring has also helped me realize how fulfilling it is to support others in their learning, which might help me lead me toward like teaching in the future as well. And then in conclusion, to wrap up, mentorship has been one of the most rewarding parts of my junior year. Through it, I've developed communication and empathy, two skills that I know will benefit me in the long term. I've learned how to support others, how to listen better, and how to lead by example. I'm grateful for this opportunity and for the trust my mentees placed in me, and thank you all for listening to my presentation.